The ad in the New York Times spoke about this violent intimidation campaign.
Yes, it was pretty bad. I mean, when you have gay fascists storming a church during a service and saying Jesus was a homo, that's not good.
Now, tell me about these incidents, because the story you just talked about in Michigan, I don't think had anything to do with Proposition 8. And wasn't anything that anybody condones. Nobody could really get to the bottom of what that even was all about.
Well, let me be very clear. I have about 14 examples in front of me, but and I'm not suggesting that most gays would endorse these kinds of tactics. You mentioned that gays being beaten
well, yeah. I mean, do you endorse abortion clinics being blown up? Do you?
I've always condemned them.
Right, and I condemn them too. So, what I'm trying to figure out here is, that there were hundreds of protests across this country, right? Thousands and thousands of people, probably comes to hundreds of thousands of gay and lesbian people protesting, tens of thousands of people protesting outside the Mormon Temple in New York, 10,000 protesting in Los Angeles. Vast majority were peaceful. So, I mean, why would you focus on this? And isn't that like us saying, well, you're all represented by the people who blow up abortion clinics?
No, because this was more than just a few. When you have churches that are getting white substances in the mail, the Knights of Columbus, Mormon temples, swastikas put on churches.
But how do you know gay people did that? There's been no evidence of that.
Please, yes, we do know it was gay people.
How?
And it wasn't straights who were roughing up an elderly woman because she was carrying a cross.
All right, we'll get to that story. We'll go to that story. But the white powder that was mailed to the Mormon Church, anybody could have done that. There's been white powder being mailed to all kinds of institutions. Well, there's been white powder being delivered to all kinds of institutions for years. Most of it has not been anthrax, has been people trying to intimidate using the idea that it's anthrax. But until you have evidence, isn't it scurrilous for you to say it was gay activists?
So when the Book of Mormon was set on fire in a Mormon church, that was the Hindus who did it?
Do you know that gay people were engaged in these?
Everybody knows it's gay.
What do you mean everybody knows it's gays? Do you know who did it? How do you know? Hey, Bill, how do you know that Mormons themselves did not mail the powder in order to get sympathy? I mean, how do you know? Are you God yourself?
When you see gays snarling traffic, endangering public safety, taking over cities in California, and
what are you talking about? Peaceful protest.
There was a lot of incivility, much more than we've seen in the gay community in the past, which is precisely why we registered this protest.
Now, listen, nobody condones destruction of property or any kind of violence. The vast majority of protesters don't. At every protest, though, something might get out of hand. People try to control it. Sometimes people come who are even infiltrators and do stuff. So that's how protest works. Vast majority of protests in this country, the history of protests in this country, you can find something going on. The people who sat at the lunch counters in the civil rights movement, there might have been somebody doing something violent, too. You can't brush all the protesters with that. You talk about this woman with the styrofoam cross. That was wrong. Gay activists stamped her cross. It was wrong. It was bad. It was terrible. Shouldn't be done. But I want you to put it in perspective, okay? It's just a styrofoam cross. Can you point to any incident where a human being got severely hurt or killed who is a Christian by gay activists? Because I can point to gay people who are killed all the time because of Christian beliefs. So you tell me, give me an actual case of violence.
You can point to isolated instances, unorganized, where some anti-gay thugs beat up on some gay guy. Don't give me this bit that now they're driven by Christian beliefs. If you
well, what drives them? What makes them think? What do you think makes them think they can or should kill someone for being gay? Religious morality.
No, I'll tell you why. The exact same thing, which you probably know about, where these anti-Latino thugs beat to death some Ecuadorian guy out in Pacho because they thought he's one of these illegals. What I'm saying is that we have a lot of punks, a lot of thugs.
What is the reason? What informs them?
Because they're different.
Because who tells them they're different? Who tells them it's a bad thing? Who tells them homosexuality is a bad thing?
The gay pride
Who tells them it's a sinful thing and a terrible thing?
The gay pride parades might give you a little bit of an inkling, since they're the only guys that can't keep their pants on when they have a parade.
Oh, so you're saying gays bring it on. Does a woman bring on a rape, then, if she's dressing provocatively?
No justification can be made for any of this violence. I'm just simply saying that you try to say that this was a function of Christian belief.
But you agree with me that people, gay and lesbian people, are murdered in this country and attacked
not too often.
Brutally. Yes, they are, Bill. I have statistics right here that violence against gays and lesbians has risen in 2006, 2007, and 2008 in direct correlation with these anti-gay campaigns.
Now, how do you know
that
these aren't inflated numbers? I'll play your little game. How do you know that these are just not made up?
Yeah. Oh, I guess
where's your evidence?
I guess the numbers are all made up by the government. The government makes them up. These are government-reported numbers, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, the violence has increased. Now, you tell me, do you have cases of religious people being murdered by a bunch of gay and lesbian thugs? Are there lesbian gangs attacking people? Is that what you're saying?
No, but there are the gays like the bashback who go into churches and disrupt services, and they vandalize it with obscenities and things of that nature. It's called bashback. You know who these guys are.
No, I don't. I don't know anything about any isolated group of crazy people who do anything like that because I don't engage in that.
Website.
I don't engage in it, Bill, and I don't know them, and I think it's wrong. But has anybody been killed? Because I can give you case after case of people being murdered.
You see, this is very interesting because that ad simply said we got people who are on all sides of the issue. Some people are pro-gay marriage, civil unions, others are not. And yet they came together to say, let's stop with the intimidation and the incivility. What's wrong with that?
If you can prove that there is intimidation come from gays, this thing about the white powder was scurrilous. Nobody knows who sent that. Same thing with Sarah Palin's church burning up in Alaska, right? She's already stoking this idea that it was gays. How do you know it wasn't a disgruntled employee? How do you know it's not an employee who's a disgruntled?
That one I have no idea.
How do you know the powder wasn't sent from a disgruntled Mormon Church employee?
When you see rioting protesters shouting separation of church and hate, African Americans called the N-word, Latinos themselves who were carrying pro-marriage signs were assaulted. I mean, come on. I mean, there's too many examples.
Gay activists were assaulted. All over California, gay activists were assaulted by Proposition 8 supporters. There were scuffles. We talked about it on this show. There were assaults. There have been charges that have been pressed against Proposition 8 supporters. That's gone on all over California, Bill. So, I mean, you have yet to be able to prove anything or to show, certainly, any violence. And I could show you case after case of violence against gay people.